everybody! So this is my themed look for the book that I'm reviewing today. It is Veronika Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho. I think I said that right. Correction from last week, it is not Paula Nuck, it is Paula Nick. And actually I knew that when I filmed the video. This last year I've gotten used to calling him Paula Nuck because I've been saying it wrong, and finally somebody corrected me saying Paula Nick, but then when I went to film the video I just went into my default of calling him Paula Nuck, so I apologize to Paula Nuck. Synopsis for Veronika Decides to Die. So clearly, Veronika decides to die in the beginning of the book, and she attempts suicide. She fails at her suicide. She wakes up in a mental hospital, and a doctor tells her, hey, you did fail at committing suicide, but you actually did irreparable damage to your body, and now you only have about a week to live anyway. So they won't let her expedite the process of dying, and so they tell her she has to be in this hospital basically for the remainder of her life, and which is only estimated about a week to 2 weeks. And this book actually is not just from the perspective of Veronika. She is just the first domino in a long line of the domino effect, and as we go through each person that she affects, we jump from perspective to perspective, and it's a really cool way to read a book. I really enjoyed it. So she just goes through and meets all these different people, affects their lives. We find out how she affects their lives, we find out their histories, and it's kind of just a collection of characters and going into their histories, how they ended up in the mental hospital, why they're there, if they want to leave, that kind of thing. So by the end of the book, it is a beautifully, with like a beautiful gold ribbon tied around it ending kind of thing. I really enjoyed the ending, which is so satisfying for me. I am a literary masochist. I love reading books that kill my favorite characters and have horrible endings that leave me feeling like the story is unfinished. So to have found a book that actually makes me feel like the ending was just a good, solid, yes kind of ending is very rare, and I'm very excited to have read a book like this. This is a very short read. It is only about 210 pages, and everything is about 1.5 spaced, and it's got a lot of dialogue, so it's a very short, very easy read. I love Paulo's writing style. I am definitely going to read more from him. This is the first book that I've read of his, and he's actually a very well-known author. He wrote The Alchemist, which I think is one of the most well-known books that he's written. I loved his voice and his narration. I really liked the message of this book, and I took a lot of the quotes to heart, and I feel like it was a very good soul-healing book. One of my all-time favorite films is called Wrist Cutters, A Love Story, and when you hear the title, you're like, Wrist Cutters, emo, a love story, what? So a lot of people go with Suicide Pact. It's not about a suicide pact. If you can, I would find it, I would watch it. You can rent it on iTunes, it's so good. I love it. The first time I ever watched that movie, I rented it on VHS from a Blockbuster, so it's older. But it's if you've ever seen that film, that you get that same feeling from this. It's a darker feel-good. I would say there's a lot of trigger warnings in this book. I would trigger warning this book for suicide specifically, depression, anxiety, and things like that. If you are sensitive to reading about those types of things, do not read this book, because it's talked about a lot in this book. So, spoiler alert. We're on the spoiler alert part of the reviews. From the perspective of Mari, I think is how you pronounce her name, M-A-R-I, or it could be Mary, just Mary. But in my head I was saying it Mari, so we'll just go with Mari. So she says, "But human beings are like that," she thought. "We've replaced nearly all our emotions with fear." And I 100% agree with that. There is fear in almost everything that we experience. There's fear in making YouTube videos and putting ourselves out there, that people are going to be really mean. That quote just kind of resonated with me, because I do think there's a lot of fear for everybody in the world, and in every decision we make, as far as, you know, what classes we take, what schools we decide to apply for, what we decide to major in, and things like that. There's fear in everything we do, and I know I felt it all through my adult life and my adolescent life, and it has caused a great deal of anxiety and depression in my life, and a lot of people that I know have suffered from anxiety and depression, both. And that comes from the fear, that comes from every single emotion that we've replaced with fear, when we should be excited about going to college and starting our lives and majoring in something we actually enjoyed learning. You know, when you're in high school, you're like, oh, I wish I could just learn something that I actually enjoy learning. And you should be so excited to go to college, but it's full of so much fear of how am I going to be able to afford this? Am I majoring in the right thing? Is this going to get me a secure job? You know, that kind of fear replacing emotion. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but that quote clearly resonated with me. So we are in the spoiler part, reminding you that because I'm about to give away the ending. I absolutely called that the doctor was just telling her that she was dying. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. I'm really good at calling the ends of books and the ends of films and things like that, and all of the plot twists and everything, like TV shows, books, movies. I'm really good at calling all of that and seeing all the little pieces of the puzzle. I mean, if you're a good writer, you've got those pieces kind of hanging out there that makes people, when you actually reveal the big twist, makes them go, ah, I should have seen that. I always see it. I don't get it 100% of the time. But this one was really easy, and I think anybody would have been able to call it, is that the doctor was lying to Veronika about dying to see what the impact of having somebody who is terminally ill in the psych ward and how that affects the other people, and it did affect the other people. I totally called that, and but I just was wondering where it was gonna go and when she was gonna find out and how she was gonna handle the news and things like that. And it turns out she just decides to run away with a supposedly schizophrenic artist who she meets in the asylum, and I thought that was a lovely love story. I thought it was very sweet. I was so excited for them to go on that really strange impromptu date, and I was very scared that one or both of them was gonna die in the snow because, you know, when they run away and they fall asleep in the snow. Like, I'm glad that the police officer found them, but we don't really get to find out what happens to them after the story. But all I know is that they found each other, they fell in love, they weren't afraid to admit it, they weren't afraid to admit that only after knowing each other for a week and him being silent for most of it, and her kind of not even making a fool of herself, just being completely 100% honest and expressive in her sexuality in front of somebody, and not feeling judged by that, and not feeling shame or guilt over it, and him being so nurturing and understanding to that. I loved that entire ending, and I loved those characters, Edward and Veronika, so yay! And I was really happy with all the endings for all the different characters. The doctor, he was a little weird, but I liked him, kind of. I had no quarrels with him, aside from the fact that he lied, but it was kind of, it wasn't a harmless lie, but it didn't necessarily hurt anyone. In this instance and in this story, I'm willing to forgive him for it because of the way things ended. So that was my review of Veronika Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho. It's a really good book. I definitely recommend you give it a read. It's very easy, it's very fast. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I have. If you guys do read it, please let's discuss the book in the comments or in any of my other social media. You can find me on everything. That's all I have for you. Paulo Coelho.